Many of you who've read my book about what happened know that I think that misogyny and sexism was part of that campaign. It was one of the contributing factors, and some of it was old-fashioned sexism and a refusal to accept the equality of women, and certainly the equality of women's leadership.
So even though the majority of married women voted for Trump, all women lost when Hillary did. That, of course, was Hillary Clinton at Georgetown University just yesterday blaming sexism for her 2016 defeat, which apparently is still top of mind. The remarks come just days after she was denounced for tolerating sexual harassment on her very own campaign team. Blaming people is Hillary Clinton's primary public pastime for the past year. Watch.
The use of my email account was turned into, the biggest scandal since Lord knows when. I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian Wikileaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off. If you look at Facebook, the vast majority of the news items posted were fake. There's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites. He certainly interfered in our election, and it was clear he interfered to hurt me and to help my opponent. There was voter suppression, people trying to prevent other Americans from being able to vote. I also think I was the victim of a very broad assumption I was going to win. I inherit nothing from the Democratic Party. Look, I take responsibility for every decision I made, but that's not why I lost.
It's possible it's easier to find public appearances by Hillary Clinton that don't involve blaming everyone and every place from Manhattan to Macedonia. We haven't found one yet. Brit Hume is Fox's senior political analyst, and he joins us tonight. Nothing makes me feel more sympathetic to Hillary Clinton, Brit, than appearances like this, because I think this is someone who has no one in her life who can pull her back and tell her how she's coming off to other people.
Tucker, she reminds me of other prominent people I've known who have made a terrible mistake, had a big failure, run into trouble. And they have a very hard time, some of them, owning up to it and admitting that they were involved in a colossal failure and they are to blame. Because when you think about her failure here, her failure to win this particular election, she was up against Donald Trump, a man whose favorable ratings were deep underwater throughout virtually the entire campaign. The Electoral College math appeared to favor her overwhelmingly. The polls all said she was leading. And it didn't seem possible she could lose, and yet she did. That is a very, very hard thing to face up to. And I think she is doing her best to find a way to look at this and a way to frame it that makes it appear that she really wasn't all to blame. And otherwise, I don't know what she'd do if she didn't have this crutch she's developed of all sorts of other reasons.
But, I mean, not to turn this into a Bible study or anything, but you've lived a long time. And don't you think that it's true that when you accept blame for things, when you realize that your failures are your fault, it's liberating. It's good for you. You feel better when you do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've often, every now and then I'll get asked to make a graduation speech, and my message is always the same to young people. Own your mistakes. Admit them, first of all, to yourself, and then to anyone else that might be involved. And it is liberating, and the peculiar fact of it is that, contrary to how it might feel to you, it almost always ends up making people think better of you than less.
Yes.
So, it's something that, but I think in her case, the burden of this is so great, and the burden of acknowledging that in the end, it was really up to her to get out and win the election, and she failed to do so against a candidate who looked like he couldn't possibly win. So here we are. I would also say, by the way, Tucker, with regard to those most recent remarks, that one she made yesterday, I don't think that it's the case that America isn't ready for female leadership and for a woman president. They were just not, the country turned out not to be ready for this woman to be president. Remember,
of course,
she turned out not to be, as she refuses to admit, a very effective candidate, and she comes with tremendous baggage, which she's always been hesitant to recognize as well, going back to her days in Arkansas and right through her husband's presidency and beyond.
I think that's exactly, I mean, the obvious lesson in the last election is America's pretty open-minded, certainly open-minded enough to elect the right woman, I would say. Britt, thank you very much. It's great to see you.
You bet, Tucker.